Yesterday, somebody made a comment that I thought was really interesting, which was, what are some mindsets that you can't live without? Beliefs that you don't question that feel obvious to you. And this is a video about that. I think I've spoken a lot on my beliefs that are less popular, but some of the ones that I think are really core to like me and what make me the person that I am, I guess I really don't question. Well, I suppose actually it's a kind of counter or anti-belief. It's that I question everything and that I don't really take anything at face value. This is for better and for worse. As a kid, I was one of the most annoying people imaginable because I would question everything. Why is the sky blue? Why is wood brown? Why is paper white? Why can't we eat paper? There was a point in time where I decided that I wanted to taste test different paper colors because, different colored Skittles taste differently. So why not paper? I did silly things like that. I just questioned everything around me. And I think this always, like, intuitively it made sense to me. But I realized this is not the case for everybody. I think one of the other ones is I don't see good reason not to try things even though they otherwise just don't make sense. Like at 13, I was accepted into a New York Times summer school and it cost 10 grand. And my parents said like, no, like this is way too expensive. It's a lot of money. And I decided to try and make the money myself. At 13, I wasn't thinking about, big ambitious productivity things. I just wanted to do stuff. I saw this thing that I wanted, which was 10K. And I was like, well, okay, how do I make this? And I was in Malaysia at the time. I couldn't get a job. And so I just started selling some stuff. It was never about just making money for the sake of money. It was a means to an end. And I didn't see why I couldn't get that amount of money. And I didn't actually make it. I think I made like $500 or something like that. Bear in mind, I was in Malaysia, so the exchange rate is really bad. I don't know. I didn't really stop to consider if it made sense or not. If something is not physically impossible, I would kind of throw myself at it and hope that it worked. That's the biggest kind of mindset or belief that I really couldn't live without, which is that everything is possible unless physics says otherwise. And I think that is something that I have always kind of used and acted with. I don't see any reason not to try or do things. Now, you have to obviously account for other humans that may or may not like what you are doing. For example, I sometimes have struggles waking up. Like I'm very groggy in the morning, whatever. I felt like I was having a bad habit of just laying in bed for too long. I started sleeping on the floor. I moved to sleep on the floor on a sleeping mat. And it's very hard. It makes you get up in the morning because it's not as comfortable. And that worked. And like, there's no part of me which saw that as weird or I don't know. And I realize that it is weird for most people. And I tell people, and people look at me sideways like, what an absolute weirdo freak. Why would you do this? And I'm just like, well, because I can, because I had this problem and this seems like a potential solution. And why not? I don't know. Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. I really don't. And I'm sure there are people who would see something wrong with it. I think the way that I see the world is not necessarily correct. It's just the way that I see the world. I think the other mindset that I couldn't live without, or, kind of belief that I don't question is really my philosophy around life. I use this in pretty much everything that I do. And that is, I think of life as a little bit of a kind of like kaleidoscope. And I think the more experiences that you have, the more colorful your kaleidoscope. And so more experiences generally gives you more richness with which to observe the world around you. And so my life philosophy is generally like, I want to learn as much as possible through as many different kinds of experiences as I can have. And along the way, make as many, friends and loved ones as I can as well. I think like people make everything worth it. Growing up, I didn't have loads of close friends. I had a handful, but I was always the kind of like, I was the more introverted type. Whatever I have of social skills have been learned, not by default. Until I was 15, I think my dad even thought that I was like too antisocial. He wanted me to learn stuff. Like people make everything worth it because I have realized in moments, small moments, but it's like when I don't have people to share stuff with, it is miserable. Like winning $1 million, but having nobody to spend it on is worth nothing. It really is. And I think a lot of joy comes from people. Actually, all joy, I think, comes from people and sharing moments and memories and things like that. I would say that is a kind of the life philosophy that I live with. I don't really question that because I have reached that kind of by myself. I think I'm a little bit of a nihilist in terms of like, I don't think there's some like inherent meaning to everything, but I do believe in that you can live an extraordinarily rich life by just collecting as many experiences as possible with as many people. On your deathbed, you want loved ones by your side. I think that's pretty much it. I think those are the most core beliefs to me that seem very obvious. Just ways that I see the world that I don't really question. I have questioned before. Like I got to these beliefs through my own logical conclusions, but like these things have seemed obvious to me for the past like 7, 8, almost 9 years, I think. Like I've just operated by these kinds of philosophies, like Seek Discomfort. I think was a big influence for me from Yes Theory, the YouTube channel. I appreciate them. I think they really helped me shape some of these thoughts. And like these things are just, it's my standard operating procedure or system, like I don't question this stuff. And I guess it seems obvious to me now. And if anybody like speaks to me who knows me, I think that's the kind of stuff that comes out. But I suppose I realize I haven't documented that very well. So this is a reply to a comment from somebody asking, what are the mindsets that you can't live without? What are the obvious things that you don't question seem obvious to you? This is it. I hope it's maybe useful to somebody, or, for anybody who's trying to figure out what are their kind of core beliefs. And yeah, I think these are the most important ones. Anyway, leave any comments as usual. I'm going to go check comments now, and I'll see you on the next video.